uh, contemplative mind and service. You had a write up about it earlier. You had shared it.
Yes.
Yeah.
So let's look at it. Thank you for bringing this up. But let's look at it this way, right? Whether is the mind engaged with the external aspects or the mind engaged with the internal aspect, which we are calling the contemplative mind. What is the common thing between them is the consciousness, right? Without that consciousness, there is no awareness. So, this awareness of something, how we process this awareness makes the difference. So, for example, it's all about, like that interest we talk about. Taking interest creates the automatic discipline, automatic understanding, and we probe into it more on which we are interested or passionate about. Right? For example, if you listen to the sports fans, football fans, they know everything about every aspect, every player, their history, and it's not like they're spending a lot of time in knowing about it. Somehow the information is coming to them and they're processing it. So this consciousness is manifesting something which you are interested in. So that manifestation brings the knowledge about that object which you are interested in. So that object is revealed completely. So whether it is an external mind or a contemplative mind, the consciousness is working in the same way for the both sides. Okay. So that means if I'm interested in, let's say, music, automatically I'm manifesting that, getting that information, attracting that information about the musician I like, their songs, their lyrics, or if it is a tune, instrument, everything I'm learning about that musician, somehow that information is drawn to me. You see what I'm trying to say? Similarly, when we become interested in this internal aspect, if the contemplative mind becomes a way of life, the contemplative mind is automatically drawing this information, knowledge about that omniscient, omnipresent, what we call God. It's automatically drawing that information. So, but what the contemplative mind does is it creates that remembrance of that. You cannot call it entity, you cannot call it that. Whatever it is, that higher essence, you get absorbed into it. Whereas in an external mind, the same interest, same love is compared with the mother or the wife in the family, always taking care of the children, family, husband, because the mother serves the child. It automatically develops interest in that child, and it knows, even before the child asks, it knows what to give the child. So that service brings love, that service brings attachment, that service brings everything into the mother towards that child. Whereas, typical, I'm referring to an Indian husband, not all the husbands are the same. They are more into their work, they're serving at work. So their identity becomes their job outside the house, whereas a woman's identity, who is a householder, again, this does not apply to everyone, right? I'm just giving you one side of example, one aspect I am taking. Who is serving its child, serving the husband, their interest becomes her life. You see? So that's why service brings love. automatically. So that's why, in order to create love and same interest towards the inner, somehow we starts with an external service. That external service, according to whichever the system one is subscribed to. Some systems only suggest prayers. Some systems suggest meditation combined with prayer. Some systems suggest something else. So each system has their own methods. By adopting those methods, you are developing that service attitude so that we can slowly turn towards that internal contemplative mind. And once the contemplative mind is established, the constant remembrance, what we call Nirantara Smarana in Sanskrit, is established. So that's the fundamental difference. Okay. And in fact, consciousness is all. It is manifesting, that the power behind that manifestation of the consciousness either has to be the ultimate essence or it has to be the mind. And that is the kind of role mind plays. I was reading a book on consciousness. He was talking about some entomologists going into the Amazon forest to study about the beetles. And about bunch of scientists going there, every time they go there, they discover a new species of beetles. And later, they recognized that they are the ones who are manifesting these new species every time they go on the research. See how consciousness can also manifest externally if there is a deep interest. It can even materialize other life forms. And that's how we all came into existence in fact. It is we are all manifested entities. Some consciousness has created us. It need not be God's consciousness, but all consciousness is treated as God. In fact, I was reading a book. This is this is another, you can say, system of thought. It's called Kashmiri Shaivism, which is a very age-old system. Let me share the book I am reading and read it from there. You can see the book, right? Okay. So I'm just reading from here. The one consciousness that underlines the universe can also be called God. Here we are referring to God as the absolute, beyond any specific form. For reasons known to him, God decides to create a universe and become many by means of his power, which can be personified as his feminine aspect. So God is, as a creator, is thought of as a feminine aspect. In fact, there is a Sanskrit word called for the God, and most of the Indians can relate to it. It is called Bhagavan. Bhagavan. In fact, Bhagavan is known as a feminine creative power. Many people don't know that meaning of the word Bhagavan. Okay. So by means of his power, which can be personified as a feminine aspect, he creates the universe in his own being. That's what the Bible also says. God created the human in his own image. Himself becoming the individual soul by a process of contraction. Though it appears in consciousness, the created world is real. There is another philosophy or concept. It says all this creation appears in the consciousness. Because it's appears like a reflection, It cannot be unreal. Even that philosophy is also there, and almost 80% of the Indian religion believes in it, that we are all unreal. But this particular philosophy thinks that even though it is an appearance, it is still real. So the universe is actually consciousness vibrating at different frequencies. We spoke about this so many times. Consciousness is not, it's a single vibratory state, it's a spectrum from zero to infinity. At a zero state of consciousness, all the mineral forms has almost consciousness close to zero. At the higher evolved life forms, the consciousness spectrum is increasing. At a human, it is supposedly at a higher state, but a contemplative mind even reaches the infinite states. That's a fundamental difference there. So the universe is actually consciousness vibrating at different frequencies, becoming more material and gross as it unfolds. So the human individual is nothing but God in a contracted form. In a contracted form. So when the individual looks at himself, he notices that he has the same qualities as the Absolute, though they were shrunken and vitiated. God has perfect will, perfect knowledge, and perfect ability to do, while the human individual has all of these powers in a limitation. They show up in him as three basic knots within his being. Again, the concept of Trinity you will see here. Right? So the first knot, again, don't confuse this with the spiritual anatomy and heartfulness. The first knot is limitation of will. The human individual experiences it in his heart as a painful sense of separation, weakness, and grief. This is the fundamental birth trauma in which God becomes the individual. So the limitation of knowledge is experienced in the mind. So the human mind experiences darkness and confusion and strains to understand the truth. Whereas the truth is right there. It is right there, but we cannot see it. It is right in front of us. We don't want to see it. That's why meditation becomes difficult. Because we give all the wrong connotations to meditation. Meditation to make the mind silent. Meditation is to become thoughtless. Meditation means experiencing some esoteric state. We put all these conditions around it. Meditation is to turn our mind towards this truth without doing anything. Just allowing the mind to find itself. So meditation is almost an automatic process. But we want to make it a physical process. We want to make it as a mental process. And we think about so many things. Oh, I have to meditate regularly. I have to be very disciplined. I have to be this and that. And, so many things, conditions we put around there. That's why we never turn towards the truth, the real knowledge. Okay. So that's why we confuse and we strain to find the truth. Oh, I'm a seeker. Even seeker is I should say it is not the right word. What are we seeking? That which is already there. Right? So that which is already there, how can I seek it? That which is already mine, how can I have it? You see, so meditation is just remove that ignorance and find the truth which is already there. And it happens by itself if we allow it. If you want to do something in meditation, you keep doing something, you will never achieve the destination, you will never achieve the goal. If you allow the mind to find itself, that's why we start with the supposition, saying the divine presence is already there within me. So meditation is not bringing any new divine presence into us. So you give the direction saying that it is already there, and the mind will find it if you allow the mind to find it. If you want to find it, then you will never find it. That's a fundamental thing there. If you understand that the basic idea, concept of meditation, it becomes the easiest thing. And in every meditation, we achieve the so-called goal. And it gets refined every time we go in there. Right? So Shaivism asks us to recognize the similarity with God and ultimately our oneness with Him. It minutely examines the human condition as a contraction that moves us from the divine status to that of the human being. It recognizes the power of contraction and delusion that brings about. The power is real, but it is actually an aspect of God within us. So one of the ways it shows up is in language. So the language that God uses in His true state expresses His ecstatic song of oneness, while human language tends to perpetuate separation and weakness. I'll stop here. But any comments, questions? So you understand, right? Meditation is the most easiest thing to do as long as we remove any conditions around it. No conditions apply. Once we close our eyes, we allow the mind to find itself. That is what the real aspect of to become a witness means. When I become a witness, I don't have any pre-notions, preconditions, prejudgments. Then I am ready to experience it the way it is. Okay. All right.